My name is Jenna Mall. I am the Deputy Director of the Justice Action Network. We are the largest bipartisan coalition working across the country to reform criminal justice systems and improve public safety. And I am just thrilled to be here today to mark this historic day in Pennsylvania. Today, Pennsylvania becomes the first state in the country to automatically seal criminal records. Due to the hard work of the bipartisan champions and organizations standing behind me, Pennsylvania is making second chances a reality for thousands of its people. States across the country are looking to this state for leadership on these issues and seeking to follow your lead. But to me, the most important part of this is the message that it sends to Pennsylvanians, the message of second chances and hope and opportunity, that your worst mistake will not follow you for the rest of your life. That's extraordinary. And I think that it is truly a compelling day for Pennsylvania, and I look forward to everything that the state does next. To hear a little bit more about what's happening, I am honored to introduce the man who 1 year ago today signed his name to this law, making it a reality. Please welcome Governor Tom Wolf.
Thank you, Jenna. It's hot out here, so I'm going to be brief. But I want to thank everybody for joining all of us in this celebration. This is indeed a big thing, and this is a diverse group that we're here with, members of the legislature, prosecutors, defense attorneys, the ACLU, Chamber of Commerce. Where's Gene? There you are. We're here because we are all of us, justice advocates. Justice for the victim. We want a just punishment for the crime. We want no more than that, but we want no less. And we all agree that it isn't fair for a person who commits a minor crime to be punished with a lifetime of being unable to get a job or to rent an apartment. Today, as the Clean Slate provision for automatic record sealing goes into effect, 30 million records could potentially be sealed, freeing thousands of people from the handcuffs of a past that they should never have had to haunt their lives. These are the people who have spent 10 years or more without recommitting a summary misdemeanor or crime, or in some cases who were never actually found guilty or had their charges dropped. These are people who couldn't shake the stigma of making a mistake or appearing to have made a mistake because our faulty criminal justice system simply didn't allow them to. That is not justice. So I'm proud of the work that we have done to right this wrong, for recognizing that this is a barrier to employment, to housing, to education, to health care, and prioritizing Clean Slate so that we can start getting people back on their feet and back to work. As Jenna said, I signed Clean Slate into effect 1 year ago today, and already advocates like Community Legal Services, the Pennsylvania Bar Association, have mobilized to help individuals navigate the process for sealing the records of higher level misdemeanors and convictions. Clean Slate is just one part of a larger push for criminal justice reform. We've already seen signs of success, but obviously we have more to do to help ensure a fair and just society for everyone. And I'm optimistic that we can continue to work in a bipartisan way to achieve this and make this society, make Pennsylvania the fair and just society we all need it to be. Now it is my great privilege to introduce two of the co-signers and sponsors of this bill, one Republican, one a Democrat, Representative Sheryl Delozier from the Republican caucus, and Jordan Harris, the minority whip of the State House of Representatives.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Governor. Thank you for being here and for everyone for being here, because today is quite historic. And Jordan and I were kind of joking that it makes us sound old, but we have been working at it a while, and it is a good idea to continue this process, and having days like this is something to celebrate. So I appreciate everyone's attendance here today, to be able to say that today is the day where we will start automatically sealing records for those in our state. So as of today, we will now have automatic sealing of criminal records of 10 years and older, as the governor had mentioned, and no longer will people with a minor nonviolent infractions be haunted by a mistake that they made 10 years earlier or more. Some of these records, looking at APOC, go back into the 70s and the 60s. They've been dealing with this for a lot longer than 10 years, but we're starting it right now. So the ability for us to get a job, get an apartment, that's important to every one of us and every citizen. The automatic computer process now seals records for summary convictions as well as some second and third degree misdemeanors, and the ability for us to go, and also those that did not have a conviction at all. So we talk about 30 million, that's a great number to have. What does that 30 million mean? That 30 million means that these are people who have compiled the sentence, they have complied with the sentences given, they have paid the fees and fines and restitution, and in talking to APOC, the breakdown is 23 million non-convictions, 17 million summaries, and 84,000 misdemeanors will compile these cases that over the next year, APOC will work each month. 2.5 million records will be worked on every single month so that this time next year, those records will be sealed. The ability to work with JNet and PSP, thank you for the work that they have done, and the ability for us to work with all of our partners to make this legislation work for Pennsylvania. We are the ability and have the ability at this point in time to make former offenders good working citizens in our public and in our communities, and that's what we all want. It's good for Pennsylvania as a whole, all 67 counties, not one county, not a particular area, not a Republican district or a Democrat district. All of Pennsylvania will be helped by this. And I stand here with pride that Pennsylvania is leading the nation in a law like this. Other states watching what we do here in the Commonwealth. We can all be proud of that. And the ability for us to work bicamerally as well as bipartisan with our Criminal Justice Reform Caucus. We are glad to work across the aisle and across the Capitol building to be able to get this done. And we want to have Pennsylvania continue and lead the way for our citizens by removing the barriers for people who have worked hard, paid their dues, and deserve a second chance. And with that, I'll hand it off to my partner, Jordan Harris.
All right. I'll be brief because it's hot. Y'all can act like y'all not hot if y'all want to. It's hot. Let me first thank I call her my partner in reform. I would say partner in crime, but see, then somebody else would, that's not good.
That didn't work.
Not with this issue. So my partner in reform, Representative Sheryl Delozier, for not just being a co-sponsor on this, but a true partnership. This is not the only bill that we're working on together. We have 2 other bills that we're working on together that we hope to get to the governor's desk for his signature. So I'm grateful for her partnership in how we reform our justice system. To our governor, who put his name on this bill and made it law. We thank him, and to all of the partners. I see Senator Bartolotta. I have a colleague here, Representative Gainey. I saw him as well. And to all of the advocates, I wouldn't name everybody, but then I would miss somebody and I would get in trouble, so I'm not going to do that. Today is historic. When I woke up this morning and I began to see some of the articles that have been written, it made me proud. It made me proud that a young guy from South Philly who has seen the damage that our justice system has done to some of my brothers and sisters and family members, community folk. It made me feel proud that on this day we're celebrating actually doing something about it. Sometimes folks get dismayed and confused with the back and forth of the body politic. And sometimes people forget why we're actually here. My view is that government's job is to get out of the way of people so that people can go on and do all of the great things that we know that they can achieve. Now, when a person has paid their debt to our society, it should be our responsibility as government to help restore them back to our communities. This is a jobs bill. If we don't help people get back to work, if we don't help them, we know in Pennsylvania that we have a 60% recidivism rate. If we want to fix roads and bridges, let's keep people out of prison. If we want to invest in schools, let's keep people out of prison. What we know is that Clean Slate will help us do just that. 30 million cases sealed. 30 million. That means a mother who's taking care of her children will be able to get the promotion that she deserves because her record will be sealed. Or that father who's trying to take care of his child or his children, maybe he won't have to have 2 jobs. Maybe he could be able to get by with just the 1 job because he'll be able to get the promotion or the raise that he deserves. This bill is about changing people's lives. And I believe that we're literally on the right path in Pennsylvania of really doing the right thing by people, by restoring them to their full potential. No one should ever be judged by their worst day. And by passing this legislation, getting it to the governor's desk, and by all of the work that's been happening behind the scenes, we're doing just that. We're being a forgiving state, and we're giving people the second chance that they deserve. But we're not done yet. There's so much more to get done in criminal justice reform, and we're grateful to all of our partners because we believe if we continue to work together, we'll get there. We'll get there one day. Thank you all so much for all of your hard work and helping us get to this day.
We're going to hand it over to our partner across the building, Senator Bartoletta.
Thank you, Representatives. I'm Cameron Bartolotta. I represent the southwest of Pennsylvania, District 46, and as the chair of the first ever Senate Criminal Justice Reform Caucus. Let that sink in. First ever. It's 2019. I can't believe this hasn't happened before. And unfortunately, my Democratic partner, co-chair of this caucus can't be here, Senator Art Haywood. We have had so many conversations about what we need to reform our criminal justice system in Pennsylvania, and having this clean slate legislation take effect today is a huge step forward in the right direction. Because a few years ago, we passed legislation expanding expungement. That allowed people who committed misdemeanors to go to court to clear their criminal records. But now with Clean Slate, we have moved on to automatic sealing. That is a big deal because it eliminates the burden of going to court. A lot of our folks don't even know they have to do that to clear their record. By doing this, we're trying to prevent the past from dictating a person's lifetime. For the same reason, we're currently working on occupational licensure so that criminal records do not prevent a person from using his or her talents in meaningful work. It's about time that Pennsylvania recognized that we're only hurting ourselves by holding back people who have a criminal record. We hamstring our own economy by taking people out of the workforce. We set these people up for a return to crime, which will cost the Commonwealth even more and impose a huge setback to the reentry of citizens who have paid their full debt to society. And there's more that we can do. We can take advantage of the Prison Industry Enhancement Program and partner with private businesses in our state prisons. The inmates learn real-world job skills while making real-world wages, which can be used to support their families, pay restitution to crime victims, and pay court costs. In the Senate, we have focused on career and technical education and jobs of tomorrow. Secretary Wetzel has done great work making higher education available to inmates. Let's help offenders develop skills that will lead to work, and when they finally get the chance, let them get those good paying jobs, just like Representative Harris said. Senate Bill 14, which I introduced along with Senator Tony Williams, prevents a person from being endlessly ensnared in the probation system in a revolving door. The bottom line is that all of this, that a person who is the fact that people have paid their price for their criminal conduct and should be free to move on and become better spouses, parents, employees, business owners, and citizens. We've unlocked the door. Now let's take off the chains.
So one of the most extraordinary things about this effort was the huge coalition of groups that came together in support of Clean Slate. And that coalition included some untraditional voices. Our next speaker represents one of those voices that hasn't traditionally engaged on criminal justice issues, but we are so pleased to have his support. Please welcome Gene Barr of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry.
Thank you, Jenna. Thank you. Thank you, Jenna. Thanks to all of you for coming out. I congratulate the organizers of the event for figuring out how to limit this event by putting the media in the shade and putting the elected officials and lobbyists in the sun. Will significantly shorten this event, particularly for those of us who get a sunburn watching outdoor shows on television. So my congratulations to you for figuring that one out. It is our pleasure to be here. We're very happy to be here to celebrate the anniversary of this signing. I congratulate the elected officials behind me, the governor, members of the House and Senate who you've heard from on moving forward on this. And as Jenna said, yes, we've often not gotten involved in issues like this, but for us it became one that was rather obvious, and I would say that there's three real reasons why we're here. First and foremost is it's the fair thing to do, as the people who spoke ahead of me talked about, giving people another chance, not being judged by the worst thing you've done in your life or the worst day in your life is absolutely crucial from a fairness perspective and a human decency perspective. Two, it makes sense for the taxpayer, because we know that we can produce people who will become productive members of society. We reduce our recidivism rates. We put fewer people in prison. That just makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. And third and finally, from our perspective, and you'll hear from one of my colleagues, Matt Smith from the Pittsburgh Chamber here momentarily, it is truly a workforce issue. Many of you know that during the budget, the governor called for a workforce command center, and he asked me to be one of the co-chairs. And I said, sure, I'm not doing anything on Tuesday mornings for the next 8 or 9 or 10. I'm just kidding, it won't be that long. But it is, and I appreciate the governor's initiative in taking that on, because it's the number one issue for our organization, because it's a number one issue for many businesses in this Commonwealth. And we've got a whole lot of people who just simply cannot take advantage of the economy that we have, of the open jobs, of being able to move themselves forward, to put themselves and move themselves and their families forward and make a better life for themselves and their families, because a mistake that they made years ago is holding them back. So for us, it's a workforce issue. We need to make sure that we get people off the sidelines, whether they're people with a criminal justice, whether it's making sure our veterans have that opportunity, those with a disability. This is a crucial part of creating the workforce that will make Pennsylvania more competitive and move this Commonwealth forward. So we're extremely pleased to be part of this here today. Jen, I thank you for the invitation to be here, and we look forward to talking more about this issue as it comes up. Thank you.
So as Representative Delozier had mentioned earlier, this coalition of support for this bill didn't just come from Harrisburg or Philadelphia, it came from across the state. And our next speaker is indicative of that. Please welcome Matt Smith of the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here and represent the western side of the state and the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce in supporting and celebrating this effort. And I want to just thank and congratulate the bipartisan group of legislative leaders behind me, Governor Wolf for supporting this measure at every step of the way and promoting it heavily as it made its way through the legislature. And Jean articulated the reasons why the business community supports criminal justice reform and Clean Slate specifically. But for us in Western Pennsylvania, this really provides a new pathway to opportunity for many of our residents in the Greater Pittsburgh region. And just to give you one metric as to why it's so important for us as a business organization and civic organization in the Greater Pittsburgh region, a couple years ago we released a study called Inflection Point. And in that study, in the 10-county region, we identified that by the year 2025, we will have about an 80,000 person workforce shortage in the Greater Pittsburgh region. And so the way that we look at this is very similar to the way Jean looks at it. It's a career pathway, it's a workforce development issue, and it's something that not only is the fair and right thing to do, but also the smart and thoughtful thing to do if we really want to be competitive, not only as a region, but as a state relative to our other states that we're competing with for business attraction and talent attraction. So this is a critical step forward. I commend all of the individuals involved, all the individuals who continue to push criminal justice reform issues day in and day out in the legislature and in the governor's office, and really just want to say it's an honor to be here. And again, thank you all for your work on this important legislation. Thank you.
So Clean Slate actually started as the brainchild of our next speaker, who many, many years ago came up with this concept, which many people told her was crazy, and I was actually one of them, and I'm sorry about that. But she was right, and I was wrong, and I am so pleased to hear from her next on this day that her dream becomes a reality. Please welcome Sharon Dietrich of Community Legal Services.
Thank you, Jenna. My job today is to talk to anyone who's watching out there who is one of the millions of Pennsylvanians that have a record and are interested in that burning question, will this law help me? The law won't help everyone, I'll say that up front. Particularly if you have a felony, this particular law will not help you. Maybe one day, but not today. But it will help literally millions of people around the Commonwealth. And I'm here to tell you that where you can get information to assess your own situation is a website that we have put together called mycleanslatepa.com. Now, there are 3 steps we are going to suggest that you take to help yourself. Step number 1, go to the court's website and see whether you have a record that comes up. And if no record comes up and you're pretty sure you had one, that's a good sign that maybe it's been sealed. So that's step number 1, check your record online with the courts. Number 2, if you have a summary offense or a misdemeanor that could be sealed, make sure you have your court fines and costs paid. Many, many of you would be eligible, especially for misdemeanors, to get them sealed, but you still owe money in the case. So check into that, make sure the money's been paid, and then your case will go through. Step number 3, it's been mentioned that there is a year for the courts to implement this process, which they need because there are 30 million records, as you've heard. You want to check at the end of that time and see whether your case is still there. And if you feel like your case should not be there, find a lawyer and let's find out what's wrong. Maybe you do need a petition filed because not everyone will benefit from automated sealing. Many people will, some few will not. So those are the 3 steps. Check your record with the court's website, pay your fines and costs, get a lawyer if you need one. And again, mycleanslatepa.com is the place where you can get lots of information, including step-by-step assistance in order to figure these things out. Now, having said that, I'm about to turn the podium over to the people that you really want to hear from, which is folks who actually are going to benefit from this law and how it's going to affect their lives. I will tell you that the 2 of them are standing in for many other people, some of whom are here. We have other folks with records who could not make it into this lengthy list of speakers, and they would be available to talk to the press afterwards. But I'm going to turn it over to Keith and Marilyn to tell their stories. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marilyn. I'm a mother to 1 beautiful child. I'm an artist, a manager, and a student. I was born and raised in Chester, Pennsylvania. And to those of you who don't know, Chester has become an impoverished city that is disproportionately affected by high nonviolent drug arrests. I am one of its residents who was and continues to be affected by not 1, but 2 nonviolent drug arrests, both of which were resolved with no conviction, might I add. I was arrested once in 2005 and again in 2007 for possessing small amounts of marijuana. My first arrest ended in my having to attend outpatient treatment to avoid harsher penalties as well as pay fines. I obtained a lawyer to handle my second arrest. I paid him a few $100s, and like magic, I was given community service. In summary, my record had 2 marijuana charges that were dismissed. People may not think that this would affect me, but it has. I had an incident occur in 2006 in which I felt ostracized for carrying such a record. At my former place of employment, we had police officers who were moonlighting as security. One of the officers, who was friendly with myself and my family, pulled me aside to warn me that my employer had been asking him questions. My background check had apparently come back, and she was upset by the information she obtained. Shortly after this exchange with the officer, my employer called me into her office, and she made it clear that she was not happy about my quote-unquote rap sheet, and that she was unaware that I possessed such a record when she hired me. Around this time, I caught wind of a position opening up at a local, well-respected company, and I was sure I was qualified enough to obtain that position. But I declined to apply for said position because I did not want to embarrass myself or my family. When hired for my current managerial position in 2014, I was deathly afraid of the moment when my background check came back. I was scared that there would be some sort of rejection on the behalf of my director. Luckily, no such thing occurred. I work for an intelligent, progressive woman, and nonetheless, it's unfair, and no one should be frightened of being mistreated for something minor that happened so long ago, something that has the ability to make a negative impression on those seeking employment. I wanted to get my record expunged for some time, but I've had more important expenses to put that money towards over the years. Back in 2006, I was quoted at $500, and that's a price I was unwilling to pay. Having my record automatically sealed allows me to close the door on a past that should not have affected me to the degree that it has. Having my record sealed means the world to me because I'm an upstanding citizen, I pay my taxes, and I deserve to be afforded the same treatment as my fellow citizens. I'm here before you today to share my story in hopes that other nonviolent offenders will learn about the passage of this bill so that they can move forward with their lives without fear of stigma or barriers. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I just want to start this off by saying, if you told me a year ago a bill like this would be passed, I'd have thought you were crazy. I would have thought you were even more crazy if you told me that I'd be up here telling my story. But anyways, let's get into it. So, my name's Keith. I'm from the Harrisburg area. Back home, I have a loving wife, 3 beautiful children, technically 2 children, but my dog counts. But my story starts back in spring and summer of 2008. First charge was a DUI. I was your typical 18-year-old kid. I put socializing over academics, which 20/20 hindsight, don't do that. Make sure you tell your kids, don't do that. But I was at a party. A friend had asked me to drop him off at his girlfriend's house. So I took him to his girlfriend's house, and as we were leaving, there was a disturbance call in the area. Cops pulled into the complex. I had 1 beer that night. I was probably 140 soaking wet at the time. And when the cop pulled me over, he took me out. He said, "Were you drinking tonight?" I told him yes. He did a breathalyzer. I blew a .031. He then handcuffed me, brought me back to the station, and it was about a 5-minute drive. When I got to the station, they did an official breathalyzer for my record. I blew a .028. God forbid if that would have been a half an hour drive, I probably wouldn't be standing here in front of you today. And the thing is the second charge that I got happened in the summer of 2008, so it was kind of a double whammy for me. I was working at an amusement park at the front gate. I was easily accessible to patrons coming into the park. Every time we get paid, we got tickets. So me and my fellow coworkers would hoard tickets, and I would sell them for a profit. A manager pulled me aside and said, "Hey, we found you and several other people to be selling tickets." So I was charged with a 3rd-degree misdemeanor at the time. And what followed suit with each charge is I never thought what was going to happen to my future rather than the present, because each time I knew my mom was on her way to get me, and I was in for it at that time. So you can imagine what happened after that. But you know, after the records were said and done, fast forward a couple years, my biggest dream was to be a certified registered nurse anesthetist. And I started off with nursing, got my degree, finished my internship. I applied for a local hospital. When I did the interview, they hired me right on the spot. When I went through orientation, they handed me an employee handbook pretty much saying, with a list of different charges that would keep you from getting the job. And one of those things on there was the 3rd-degree misdemeanor of a theft by unlawful taking, which in technicalities is property under $10, so you wouldn't think it would hit that hard, but it did. So I had to kind of push that dream aside and move forward with my life, working through anywhere from temps, customer service jobs. A lot of jobs were favors of a favor, just people doing favors for me, or they knew somebody in there, so they'd get me through. Luckily, in the profession that I'm in now, I was able to get in. They really took their chance on me, and you know, they recognized me for my potential and not my past. And in my profession, you have to be licensed in several states. And in order to be licensed in several states, they're going to run your background. And it's not so much what's on my background that holds me back, rather than the money that goes towards it. So, you know, my job would have to spend that money to be able to license me in these states, so it's easier for them to just keep me in the certified states in which I can work. So you can only imagine what what we've been through, no matter how minor the record seems, it always seems to hit majorly, because anytime you apply for that job, you know you're going to have that question come up where it's like, have you ever been convicted? And then you have to relive those moments all over again, and to you it seems petty, but it's not. So, it's not one of those things where it was, hey, the past 7 years, it's have you ever, which hurts the most. So you really lose confidence in your ability. You kind of feel like it's not worth it anymore. So you kind of just scrounge around to better yourself. What I can say about the program, though, is I'm excited for it. I wouldn't say I'm as excited for myself as I am for, other people involved, because you've got so many people out there aspiring to be something huge, whether that be a doctor, a lawyer, a senator. They can at least start their college career, get through it by the time they're done with residency. If they have 2 years, 1 year left before their record gets sealed, at least you can tell that person, work your butt off those 2 years, and when you're done, pursue your dreams. And with this, they really have a chance. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's involved with pushing this bill. I'll tell you right now, after today, there's a lot of things I want to do and that I'm excited for. My job security has never felt better, and I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Our next speaker was deeply involved in implementing and enacting Clean Slate here in Pennsylvania, but she's also now involved in the national Clean Slate push to provide these same opportunities coast to coast. Please welcome Rebecca Vallis from the Center for American Progress.
Thank you so much. I got words ringing in my ear right now from one of the previous press conferences about this historic bill, and those words are from another person who has spoken about what his record has meant to him, and that's Ronald Lewis, who is actually another client of Community Legal Services. He said, sitting next to Governor Wolf, when this law was actually signed into law, when it was a bill being signed into law, he said that Clean Slate to him is like a cool glass of water on a hot summer day, and I cannot think of more fitting words to share with this group today. I will say, as the law is taking effect, though, you can feel it's getting cooler. The cloud cover is improving. So the Center for American Progress is so honored to be here celebrating this truly historic occasion. You've heard several people use the word historic so far, and that's because this law and what is happening today is not just historic for the state of Pennsylvania, it is making history when it comes to criminal justice reform and second chances in this country. And that's because it's not just people like Keith and Marilyn and Ronald who are impacted and who are going to be helped. In this digital era, with 9 in 10 employers using background checks and hiring 4 in 5 landlords using background checks on their prospective tenants, when 1 in 3 Americans have some type of criminal record, having a minor record can be truly a life sentence to poverty. It can stand in the way of jobs, of housing, of education, of training, basically every building block of economic security, like a scarlet A that haunts you for decades. And that's why, if not for mass incarceration and the barriers associated with having a criminal record, poverty in this country would have dropped by 20% between 1980 and 2004. Let that sink in, the impact of what this law is going to be able to do. So just as the digitalization of our society is what's fueled the current criminal records crisis that we are hearing about today, where millions of people find themselves held back for years, even decades, by a single mistake, now Pennsylvania is leading the way by putting technology to use to help those people move on with their lives. The Center for American Progress commends Governor Tom Wolf and all the people standing behind us, and in particular Sheryl Delozier and Jordan Harris, we got to give some serious credit there, for leading the way by becoming the first state in the country to enact this legislation, Clean Slate, and to pave the way for automated record clearing as the next wave of criminal justice reform. That is what we are watching play out now in states across the country that are looking to Pennsylvania and following in this state's footsteps. Earlier this year, Utah became the second state to pass automated record clearing, literally following in Pennsylvania's footsteps. Now we're watching legislation introduced in California, Connecticut, Arkansas, Delaware, and states across this country. We're even watching people in Congress learning from Pennsylvania and taking this bill federal. I could not be more excited about this law taking effect and the tens of millions of people across this country whose lives will be touched as Clean Slate spreads to other states across this country. Congratulations to everyone here and to Pennsylvania for leading the way.
Support for Clean Slate truly did come from all sectors across those that care about legislation in Harrisburg. And our next speaker is going to give you a little bit of a glimpse of that. Please welcome Fran Chardo, District Attorney for Dauphin County. Thank you.
The next stage of Clean Slate is good for public safety. The Pennsylvania District Attorneys Association has supported this law because it will help former offenders put their past mistakes behind them. It will help them get and keep jobs, and that is a good thing for them, for their families, and for all of us. The ease of internet record searches has required that we ensure that potential employers and the general public will not misuse past records. So this law seals dockets so that they will not be misused, and that will promote public safety. We are glad that we could play a role in supporting this worthy goal, and we're happy that this is taking effect now and that so many people will benefit from it. This is a great day for Pennsylvania. Thank you.
There is so much that is going on behind the scenes in order to make this a reality, and the reason that that's even possible is because of AOPC and the countless hours that they have put into implementing that. Please welcome Tom Darr, Court Administrator for the AOPC.
Good afternoon and welcome to the PJC on this hot afternoon in front of our new building of 10 years. Common sense and collaboration and innovation are, I think, three words that everyone in state government can really appreciate, and I think all the citizens can too. And that's what we have here, I think, today is common sense, collaboration, and innovation. The judiciary's role in Clean Slate results from innovation some 30 years ago when several judges and staff got together and decided, before most other states did, to push for development of a statewide automated computer system for the courts. The resulting judicial computer system, which among its many purposes connects all of Pennsylvania's criminal courts, is the genesis of the data that automatically fuels subsequent Pennsylvania State Police work in implementing Clean Slate. All as envisioned by the folks behind me, the policy-making partners from across the street. The resources over the last several decades made available by the legislature and by successive governors to allow the judiciary to develop a system such as the Common Pleas computer system is much appreciated. It's something that we hope will continue for years and years to come. It is something that programs like Clean Slate will increasingly depend upon, and we simply congratulate everyone here today, everyone, whether there are staff, some of whom are here, who have worked hard on this legislatively and in IT, or anyone across the state. It's a great day for Pennsylvania. Thank you very much.
Last but certainly not least, the reason that Clean Slate happened was because of bipartisanship. We saw the bipartisan duo of Representative Delozier and Representative Harris, bipartisan support in the Senate. That's why it all came together. And our next two speakers show us exactly how deep that bipartisanship runs. Please welcome Liz Randall with the ACLU and Larissa Goggin with Americans for Prosperity.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Randall, the Legislative Director for the ACLU of Pennsylvania. And I just wanted to sort of frame this very quickly within what the ACLU is doing nationally, but how this is affecting all of our 52 actually affiliates throughout the nation. Our campaign for smart justice focuses on four main reform areas: bail reform, sentencing reform, prosecutorial reform, and probation and parole reform. But all of those changes in all of those arenas where we're working, will not that loop will not be closed unless we deal with the reentry issues. Clean Slate is an amazing concept, so thank you to Sharon Dietrich for this incredible brainchild that has seemed to sort of blossom all over the country, and we are celebrating that here today. Certainly our legislative leadership, bipartisan and bicameral, and just wanted to also say that this sort of arrangement, AFP and ACLU, I think people sort of imagine as strange bedfellows, but we have been working together. A lot of the people behind me, we are working on a lot of these different issues collaboratively. I have to say it's really exciting, although unusual, partnership, but it's fun to see some of the facial responses and looks of surprise and sort of aghast moments when we walk into legislators' offices or talk with our allies about some of our partnerships. But I think it's created some really incredible open lanes of communication where we can do incredible work, maintain and build wonderful relationships in order to make our criminal legal system much more fair and much more just.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Larissa Gahn, Americans for Prosperity Pennsylvania's Mid-State Community Engagement Director. And it is my honor to celebrate a day that will profoundly enhance the lives of many in our community of criminal justice reform allies that I've partnered with throughout the past year. At Americans for Prosperity Pennsylvania, our vision is to lower barriers to opportunity to help people improve their lives. And we know that this is a nonpartisan aim. From today forward, the reforms incorporated in Clean Slate are going to be automatically extended to qualifying Pennsylvanians ready to fully pursue lives of fulfillment. These folks will have the fresh start they deserve after paying their debt to society. A mistake should not define the rest of your life. These individuals have earned second chances, and they shouldn't be hampered by needless barriers that do nothing to enhance public safety. Many Pennsylvanians can now pursue housing and employment that would have been more difficult or even impossible to secure before Clean Slate. Along with everyone present today, I look forward to learning of the great experiences newly clean-slated Pennsylvanians will realize. Free people are capable of extraordinary things, and the beneficiaries of Clean Slate will have the potential to make great contributions to our Commonwealth. Thank you.